You're listening to the Outside the Box podcast
with Mike, Gwen, Alex, and Lee from Outside the Box Associates.
Every month, your host will have a real-world discussion about rights and topics that many of us take for granted.
From a different perspective, the lens of disability advocacy.
It may look a little different,
but we live, we laugh, and we love just like everyone else.
And we share the same rights as everybody else.
Join us as we explore the practical aspects of these rights.
It may just change your perspective. Hi, I'm Mike Rogers.
I'm Alex Jesko.
I'm Gwen Squire.
And Lee couldn't be with us today. He got a flat tire or something. We don't know what's going on, but we'll check in with him in a bit. Today we're talking about discrimination.
We really want to talk about discrimination and how to deal with it in an effective way that we can actually promote dialogue and people learning and coming together. So, Alex, what are some experiences you've had?
So, for me, I've definitely had more subtle forms of discrimination. People will call me buddy or honey or sweetie, but they won't call anybody else that I'm with that, things like that. And I understand that, it's just people trying to be nice and trying to acknowledge the fact that, I'm there and that I'm existing there and whatever. And that's fine. I have no problem with that. However, it does make me feel like, I'm separate from the group or not, I'm different. And it's a very subtle way of pointing out, like, this guy's a person with a disability, So yeah.
Yeah, I used to work at a grocery store, and I used to get that all the time. The ones they used to get with me about were big guy, pale, superhero. I had a lady come through my line. I used to be a cashier, and she came through with her probably 12-year-old daughter at the time, and she said, "Tell him how great he is." And I looked at the young lady and I said, "Don't tell me how great I am. That's very condescending. Please don't do that. I know that it seems like it might be nice, but you don't want to do that." I looked right at the young lady and said that so that she knew. And the mother didn't say anything, and I was like, well, I hope they learn something from that,
Absolutely.
or another one for me that I used to get when I used to work at the grocery stores. "Oh, we're so glad they gave you a chance here."
Oh my gosh.
And
yep.
and and that may come across as positive, but it's really not. It's really negative.
Yep.
Gwen, what about you? What experiences have you had? Can you come to mind with some of those?
Yeah, what about when, like, say we're at a bus stop, you two, and you get told, "Oh, aren't you just so great? You're such an inspiration." And you just want to say to the person, "For what? Coming to the bus stop?"
Yep.
Yeah, that inspiration thing. I like to say that I'm a perspiration, not an inspiration.
Exactly.
That's great.
Me too.
I mean, and I think because people think of discrimination as these big lofty things, like you call someone the R word, even though I've been called that before.
Oh, yeah, me too.
That's not something I usually get.
Yeah.
Right.
I usually get the more buddy, pale, big guy,
Right.
type of thing. Yeah.
Right.
So
I will also say, in my experience, I recently had an experience where I was getting into a lift to go to an appointment, and this guy pulled up behind my lift, like made this really weird like corner turn into one of the driveways that was close to the lift, and he was like, oh, hey, are you that guy that, walks down, around my neighborhood, that kind of thing? I'm like, yeah, yeah, it's fine. He's like, I just want you to know that you're such an inspiration. God bless you. And it's like, thanks, I appreciate it, but like, I'm just going for a walk, like, not a big deal. And to be fair, everybody that's listening, it's not that we don't take offense to this, but it's just like we're just trying to live our lives. We're not trying to inspire in the sense that, oh, we're out there being big bads. We're just going for walks, and getting out in the
Right.
world. We're not trying to inspire. But if that is the case, if we do inspire you by virtue of that, that's awesome. We're really glad that
Yeah,
you're inspired by our actions. But,
yeah.
Exactly.
I mean, you can think of it in either way, and sometimes you need to think of it both ways. Hey, that was a little offensive. Let's look at that. Why are you saying that?
yeah,
Because you
Right.
know it depends on the situation. You
It
know,
does.
because like I think what the well-meaningness of it is, you're out there doing things that most people you know wouldn't make the effort to do, and in your situation or in our situation
mhm,
we're
Right.
making that effort. but
Right.
but what they don't understand, and this is how we can handle it in a way that is positive and bring people together, is just saying that not everything about disability is, oh, poor me, it's awful, it's terrible.
Right.
I had a really nice lady that I knew for years say to me one time when we were both waiting at a doorway, it's got to be really hard to live on your own. Now, I live interdependently with aid service, but not really. It's not really as hard as you might think. I mean, we do have our struggles and different things like that, and we're not shying away from those, but it's not as hard as everybody thinks that, that getting up and breathing is.
mhm.
Right.
Exactly.
Exactly. I agree. Or you get somebody saying, "Oh, don't you miss not being able to walk?" And I remember I said to somebody one time, no, you can't miss something you've never had."
Exactly.
And it shut
Yeah,
them
they
up.
have that. Yep,
And I
yep.
say, and I was just saying, honestly, no,
Yep.
we don't.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And there are levels of discrimination. I've had people not want to take an elevator with me. I've had a
All right.
lady
Okay. Yep.
I've had a lady with two kids
Mm-hmm.
walking that walked all around my apartment building so she didn't have to come in contact with me outside.
Are
Wow.
you serious?
I did.
Wow.
And when she would walk one way and see me, she would turn around with her kids and walk the other way like she was gonna catch
Touch
something.
something.
I
Right.
mean, I
Oh my
don't know
God.
what I don't know what floor she lived on at the building I was in or anything like that, but
Right.
there's levels of discrimination, and that if I would have confronted her on that, I would have been a little bit more forceful and say, "What are you doing?
Right.
I don't have a disease, you
Right.
know."
Exactly.
But as long as you make it a learning experience for people and say, why do you think that way? Open up a
Right.
dialogue and say,
Yep.
Right.
hey, no, I'm just living my life. I appreciate the
Mhm.
compliment, but there's really no reason to do that.
Yep.
I agree, Mike. I really do. Yeah. Um, I've had that incident. I've had that actually happen to me, like at the Erie County Fair one time. I had the woman, actually yank her kid away and say, "You're going to catch something." And I'm like, I said the same thing. I don't have a disease you can't catch, but I have,
Hmm.
you know?
Yeah,
How
And,
yeah.
did she, how did she
I
react to that?
don't know if I thought of it as, discrimination or ignorance or what, but I was kind of offended.
Right. How did she react to that when you did that?
I'm sorry.
How did she react to that when you did that?
When I said it, she just kind of looked at me and like, okay, whatever.
Okay.
So obviously she just didn't want to, learn from it.
Right, right.
Now, but I've had other people do just the opposite. Oh, really? What do you have then? And I'll tell them. And I'll even tell them what spina bifida is, that I had a sac on my back at birth. And that's why I can't walk because, it messed with my nerves
Right.
in my back and stuff. So I'll explain it. I don't have a problem with that. I'd rather have people ask me questions, and I know that both of you feel the same way, than just
Absolutely.
stare or be ignorant about it.
Oh yeah,
Absolutely.
that's what I love about little kids is they'll just
Me too.
ask. I
Yeah.
I I had a kid come up to me one time in a store and he goes, "Can I ask you a question?" And I go, "Yeah." And he goes, "Why are you broke?"
Aw.
And I
I love
go,
it.
"I'm not broke. I was just born a little different than you are. My legs don't work like yours do, but
Hmm.
that
Mhm.
don't mean they don't work. They just work a little different,
Mhm.
and that's okay." And he said,
Good
"Okay,"
way,
and he walked away.
That's
good
cool.
way to handle it.
And
Good.
but there, like I said, there's those extremes where people want to heal you, and you're not
Yep.
supposed to be
Oh,
that way.
oh, let's get into
Right.
that one. Okay, so
Yeah, go ahead, Alex.
I've had this happen a few times where I would say at least 4 times in my lifetime so far, where people have approached me and go, "Can I pray over you? Can
Hmm.
I
Me too.
can I heal you?"
Yep.
And you know, for me, so because I'm very pro spiritual and religious, whatever,
Hmm.
I will let them do whatever they want to do,
Me
usually,
too.
if
Me
I
too,
have the
usually.
time and whatever. But
Right.
it doesn't usually amount to much, and it's not really offensive. It's not offensive in the sense that they want to do that for me because I understand that it's coming from a place of I want to make you better. And okay, sure.
Right.
But
Right.
my take on the perspective is um, what if I am exactly the way that the higher powers intended?
Right. I agree.
You know, what
Yeah.
if I don't need to be changed?
See,
What if I'm perfectly uh I am perfectly the way I am and or I am perfect
Hmm.
the way I am.
Right.
What if that is the case?
see
Hmm.
that see that's the way. I'll tell you my biggest story for something like it because I got a lot of little ones, but when I
Yeah,
was young, my family took me to a healing mass because I'm of the Catholic tradition,
right.
and I wasn't healed. And I came home, and my grandma in particular was really kind of upset because she was like, "Well, oh, it didn't work," and I'm like, "Well, that's because for whatever reason, I'm supposed to be this way, Grandma. I'm supposed
Right.
to be this way.
Hmm.
I have a purpose of being this way. If I was supposed to be healed, that would have happened. That
Hmm.
because it's not that I don't believe that those things are possible. They're
Right.
medically documented cases of people being healed, so
Right.
that's possible to me. But
Right.
it's not possible for me because I don't see anything wrong with the way that I am.
Right.
And
Exactly. I don't.
I think when you
I don't
think of
either.
it at that deeper level,
Hmm.
Right. Yeah. I mean, and I remember watching as a kid too those kinds of programs, Mike and Alex, and I used to talk to my sister about it, and she'd say, "Well, Gwen, if they could really heal you, I would take you there." But really, a lot of that's just fake. And if God made you this way, God made you this way for a reason. Or the higher power, whatever everybody believes in. But she
Yeah.
said basically the same thing you're saying, Mike. You're supposed to be this way. And maybe somebody like myself isn't supposed to be walk. What if I'm not the normal one and you are because you have a you are the way you are? She turned it around, is basically what she was trying to say.
That's cool.
yeah. I,
You
I
know?
I mean, because I've gotten that a lot from people on the street. I got that from people that lived in one of the apartment buildings. You're not supposed to be that way, and I'm like, oh,
Right.
you have that on first authority, huh?
Mhm.
And
Yep.
and
I agree.
I'm like, wow, you have that much clout, huh? But
Yeah.
but
Good to know.
yeah, but no, I think it's all about any kind of discrimination is about people not interacting. And I don't mean just education.
Mhm.
Right.
Education is great. You need to educate people first. But
Right.
really, how people become non discriminative is by interacting with the people that they're concerned about or afraid of. You
Hmm.
know, because to
Yeah.
me, that's the best way of dealing with discrimination is if you don't know about a certain group of people, get to know them.
Absolutely.
Exactly. I agree.
Get to know them. You
Right.
know, and I don't think there's enough of that because people think, well, if you just educate somebody and they know they're not supposed to do that. Well, I know a lot of people that know they're not supposed to discriminate and they still do it.
But
So
yeah,
so I think
and they
it's
are educated, some of them.
oh yeah, yep, yep. So that's a part of it, but you really got to get to know somebody and say, a big thing for me is when I was stuck in the December storm last year.
Uh-huh. Hmm.
I got to know a lot of people in my apartment building because we were all stuck together. And the one guy who is still friends with me to this day says, we wouldn't know about you guys if we hadn't interacted with you like that. So he
Yeah.
even said, we know you now because we interacted with you.
Cool.
So
Right.
I think that's the ultimate way to deal that we could deal with discrimination in the world is if you're squeamish about black or brown people, get to know a black or brown person. If you're squeamish about people with disabilities, get to know them.
Mhm.
You know, I know it's easier said than done, but
Right. And I have another story too, Mike and Alex. When I was younger, living in an institution, there was a girl that, I was in the same area with, in the building with, and she was Jewish, okay? And her mother talked to the staff and asked the staff at Christmas for Hanukkah for her to light candles for her. I learned all about the lighting of the candles and why they do that and all about being Jewish. And I thought it was like the coolest thing to learn about. So that was
yeah,
very cool for me to learn.
people's cultures and why they do things, right?
Absolutely.
Exactly. Yeah.
And that is something
Don't
that
just don't just think ick or whatever and don't want to know about it. Get to know the person and why do they like candles? Why do they, do whatever they do for their religion and their culture, like you said? Why do they eat the foods they do? Ask.
and there is something to be said about disability culture as well. A lot of people don't realize that people with disabilities have their own sort of culture. The way we do
Yes.
things, the way we interact, the way we see the world is very similar in a lot of ways to a lot of other people with disabilities in certain ways. And in certain ways not. It can differ just as much as anybody else in any other community.
Oh
Um,
yeah, because we have common experiences. But I
Exactly.
love the way you say it can differ because there are a lot of people with disabilities that have different opinions than myself.
mhm,
And
Right.
I think it's really cool that you can have that diversity within a group of people.
Right.
absolutely.
And then I'll add another thing. No two people with the same disability are alike. You and
Absolutely.
No,
Alex both have you and Alex both have cerebral palsy. That doesn't mean you're alike.
no.
Nope.
My CP my CP is a lot different than Alex's CP, if you want to say our CP,
Right.
we're a lot of different in that way, and we're different as people. I often get, well, you have to know what it's like because this person has
Yep.
the same disability you have, and I'm like, well,
Been there. Yep.
not necessarily, or you must know this person because they use a wheelchair too. I love that one. I'm like,
I just got that
no,
one the other day.
no, we're not connected.
No.
No.
Well, they're in the disability community, so
Yeah, they like in some of the comedy I do, I touched upon that.
yeah.
They think we all know each other and stuff like that, and we don't. We don't. You don't know this person? No, I don't know every person with a disability.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah,
But
you're
but
right.
I think it's all about interacting and knowledge, getting some knowledge and experience.
Yeah, and if you can interact with somebody with a disability, we have the technology nowadays where you can do research and Google and all that kind of stuff. Now, the thing about that is that yes, the internet will share with you a lot. Is a lot of that going to attribute to the person you might see? Probably not. Like we already said, we're all different. So how we go about our day, how we interact with the world is going to be a bit different. However, at least you can get the understanding of the various kinds of disabilities and how they can potentially affect people versus not knowing at all. So it's better to know than not, regardless of whether you don't whether if it's going to affect somebody a certain way or not. So yeah.
Yeah, and even those little discriminatory stereotypes, like, and no offense against anybody that lives in a group home. I know a lot of people that live in a group home that have great lives and are great people. But I mean, one of the biggest ones is people think that everybody lives in a group home,
That group.
and
Yeah.
uh, and you have to tell them no. Some people do, which is great, and some people live in
Right.
their own apartment. Some people live with their families, just like anybody else in the world. We all live the way each wants to live, or the best way
Right.
for them.
Yeah.
You know.
I, yeah. I was out with some friends for dinner maybe a couple years ago, and we had gone to Applebee's. I remember that we were all sitting outside waiting for paratransit, our rides home. And I remember a lady coming out and going, "Oh, what group home are you guys from?
Yeah.
You girls from?" And I looked at her and I said, "None of us live in group homes. We all live in our own places." And she's like, "You really do?" And I'm like, "Yes." And we sat there and talked to her about it.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
I've gotten that before, and I'm like, well, I don't live in a group home. I live, as I call it, interdependently, because I do get some help, but I don't
Right.
live
We
in
all
a
do.
group
Sure.
home setting. But
Right.
that's a common stereotype
Sure
that
is.
you have to push back on a little bit.
Yeah.
Right. Or because you're in a use a wheelchair or crutches or whatever, you aren't educated.
Oh
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
another one
yeah.
yeah. That is
that I've
That,
dealt with.
that's why people sometimes start raising their voice like this when they talk to you, and it's like,
God.
Yeah.
why are you doing that? I
Yelling.
mean,
Exactly.
I don't have trouble with my hearing, so
Mhm.
why are you? And what's funny about that is why they think raising their voice is going to make you understand more or something. Like,
Exactly.
if you
Absolutely.
yell it at me, I'll get it right away, sir. Thank you. I
Mhm.
appreciate that.
Yep.
I know.
So
But
one of the things also, I'm sorry, Mike, I don't mean to cut you off.
no, go on.
But one of the things I would also say is that that's why education is super important. And it's also about, encouraging advocates to get out there and be among the community. Because even if you're not teaching people about people with disabilities, just being out there brings awareness to the fact that we exist and that we're out there. And that's super important. And it's a really good way to fight against this stigma of ignorance that's out there about people with disabilities. Because the more
Yes.
you're out there, the more it piques curiosity.
It
People might
sure
go,
it
It
sure
should.
does.
Sure
absolutely.
does.
So
It sure does. I got one story that I can end with
go ahead.
that's perfect for this. I was getting off a fixed route bus, and I was going down the sidewalk, and I these two ladies were walking all the way behind me, and one lady goes to the other one and said, "Wow." And so I turned around and I looked. I'm like thinking that there's something going on behind me or whatever. And she goes, "What?" The other lady goes, "What?" She goes, "Wow, look at that. He's out."
Yeah.
And the other lady goes, "Yeah, they're out more. They're out more, a lot more now."
I love
So
it. That's
so
great.
So,
Oh
so
my
that
gosh.
does tell you that being out and showing yourself to the community matters, because then that does pique their interest. Now, did I like that? And did I like that exchange that I heard? Not necessarily, but at
Right.
least they were talking about it. They were talking
Mhm.
about it and saying how positive it was to see somebody with a disability out in the world,
Mhm.
and that was a good thing.
That's great. I love it. That's awesome.
It's all in the
But
way you take it, right?
yeah, I mean, I
Part
I
of
look
it.
at it this way. Sometimes you have to take it negative to look at the situation and say, no, that's not right. Like
Right.
racism in the 60s. If you took
Exactly.
everything like it's all right, then nothing would have ever been changed. That
Exactly.
if Dr. King said, went out one day and said, oh, the way we're being treated, the way we're being lynched and all that, that's just fine. You
Oh,
know,
Exactly.
our world would not have changed in that way because
yeah.
they stood up and said, no, it's not okay.
Yeah.
You
And he
know?
did it in a nonviolent way.
Yeah. And did it in a nonviolent way and in a charitable way in many ways, as well as
Yes.
the disability rights movement does. We do a lot of things, in
Yes.
a charitable way. I mean, but sometimes you just need to tell people, hey, look, don't be doing that. Don't be doing
Right.
that. That's
Yeah.
not
Right.
respectful.
Exactly.
But it all depends on the situation and how you deal with your emotions at the time.
Yes.
Think about something before you just react to it. I
Mhm.
would
Exactly.
say to other people with disabilities.
Yes.
But no, this has been a great conversation, everyone. This has
Sure
been
has.
great.
Mhm.
Yes. So,
And come back and listen to our future episodes. Make
Absolutely.
sure that you come back because we're doing this for you.
Yes. We really enjoy these podcasts, and I enjoy talking with Mike and Gwen quite a bit and sharing our experiences. And
mhm.
you'll get more of this as we go on. So stay tuned.
Yeah. And if you have any topics that you would like us to chat about, um, face contact us on Facebook or email us or whatever.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely contact us and we will address those things.
Yeah. Have a great night, everybody.
Good night, everybody.
Bye-bye.
You've been listening to the Right of the Month podcast with Mike, Alex, and Gwen from Outside the Box Associates. The Right of the Month podcast airs every Thursday and Saturday evening at 8 p.m. Eastern here on Heartability Radio. Listen on Live 365 or www.heartabilityradio.com. We'll see you next time.